Hello and welcome to the DSP Project. I'm your host Rupert Brown, and in this episode we're interviewing Ryan, better known as RQ. So let's start from the start and talk about your beginnings as music when you were younger. What was your first kind of taste that you wanted to get into, be involved with production and that sort of thing?
With actual electronic music production, it came about when I stopped DJing because my ears were roasted, and I'd always tinkered with things before that, sort of guitar stuff and percussion. But when I gave up DJing, which I had to do because that era is utterly gone, I bought a computer in I think the year 2000 that, my cell phone's probably smarter now. But and I got Fruity Loops and Acid and just started plugging away, And the sort of music that I was into was Pesce and Hospital Records and stuff like that. So that's what I was trying to emulate first up. So, unsuccessfully, I might add. Yeah.
So were you DJing that style of music to start off with? Just quickly touching on the DJ side of things, to take it right back.
Yeah, I was mainly DJing around 97, 98, I would say, in Christchurch. So I was just playing tech step, basically. And I got right into the sort of good-looking records and Pesce and all that sort of chilled out style. Yeah, like I was very, very big on that. I did a night for a while in Christchurch of, natural progression sort of style, logical progression styles, and yeah. But that didn't really work because you can't really chill out in a club with a dance floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, but mainly I played that sort of golden era tech step, which I still have here and play every now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. You've got quite a vast record collection. You can see a fraction of it behind us. I think you've got quite a bit more tucked away as well, don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, music's been an important part of your life for quite some time since.
Absolutely.
Since from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I would wager that quite a few of these are actually literally my parents' records.
Yeah.
That I've stolen from them, and they've been sampled. They've been in things. They've featured. So I think the love of music definitely grew out of that. My dad had a massive stereo system with speakers that he made himself, which were this high.
Yeah.
and he used to play can't see it Oxygen a lot. Jean-Michel Jarre, and that was when I was probably 5 or 6 when he was playing that. So I could pretty much imagine that planted some reasonably good seeds.
Almost a direct correlation between that style and the sort of stuff.
I'd be very surprised if it wasn't a massive factor, especially at that age and how I was introduced to it, which was loud.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. Yeah. Mm. And so I still find that creeping back in, as you say. Yeah, especially in the ambient stuff. I would hate to be only making one type of music, and as tempting as it is sometimes, I think, because you would get more traction maybe if you just made drum and bass, or you just made dubstep, your own brand of dubstep. But if I just had to set my BPM to 140 every time, I think I'd go nuts, And a lot of people are the same, people are spreading it around from 70 to 180 producers, so yeah. Yeah,
we're definitely seeing a lot more of that, I think. People are sort of not so afraid to diversify.
Yeah. And it's really good. I mean, it was never like that. You either did this or you did that, and there was very few people that did a couple of things. When Photek did the sort of house flavoured album, people were just no.
That was an outrage, wasn't it?
We're not having it
specifically. Yeah.
And he was one of the first people, I think, to actually, not under a pseudonym, under his own name, to sort of do something completely different, and people were just
traitor.
Oh, it was crazy.
I'm not saying that, but that's the kind of thing that was being thrown around at the time.
Well, it was, everyone was always looking forward to the next thing he would do. So when it came out and it wasn't Photek, To
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it was photo, but if it wasn't the old style, everyone was just didn't know what to do. But
Yeah.
I think when you look back at it now, it's a great album. But people were just so unprepared to listen to it.
Yeah.
Whereas now,
people
D-Bridge is all over the map, you know,
Yeah,
and
true.
and his mates. It's a lot of the time I have absolutely no idea what BPM tunes are I'm listening to, and I think that's really good.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to go, doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I did an interview with Joe Gantor of Evil Intent, and I threw the question out to like a forum where he sort of used to lurk, saying, you know, I'm talking to him, what's some things, and that was one of the things was someone was like, why the fuck are they making drum step? I hate it. I want drum and bass and blah blah blah. And it's kind of like this person obviously felt very passionately about what he thought, you know, Evil Intent should be, or what that sound should be. And it's kind of like the reward that they get from your fan. You know, they've given this guy some music that clearly has enriched his life, and so their reward for that is being sort of typecast and then being called an asshole or whatever for trying something different.
If you switch gears on people, and I would say it's not a massive amount of people that would be that staunch, and especially not recently. But
No.
yeah, I don't get the mentality that you're doing something that's not exactly the same as what you're previously doing. Whereas other producers have been slated for not changing and doing
win.
exactly the same thing. So it's
true.
You can't win. So do whatever you want.
So your music has a beautiful sense of space to it. I'd liken it sort of to some of the work that either Pitch Black does or Burial, with those sort of really beautiful reverbs, and it has a space and an organicness to it that's almost analog sounding, even though it's something that I know that you work completely in the box, don't you?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about you sort of how that sound comes about?
Well, it was a direct result of working out of the box and trying not to sound like it was all done on a laptop. You know, because if you just run everything straight out, whether it be a VST or whatever, it's going to sound very, very digital and clean, which can be fine if that's the sort of track you're trying to do, you know, sort of like Icicle or Rockwell, you know, that hyper clean sound. But I just think that it's just my personal taste, and I think it's from listening to a lot of records and a lot of crazy ambient stuff in the past that I do sort of want that rounded off feel to it, that, you know, that it's been through a desk and in some weird little studio, you know, that's kind of the vibe that I like to have going in the background. And it's sort of the starting point for a lot of stuff as well, because of the way that you treat things as they go through. You know, you can get either interesting results or the sound will change from what you initially wanted, so you're off. And so it's kind of like as soon as you change something, that's your style starting right there. You know, as soon as you put a certain reverb on something or overlay something over something that's existing, that's your style. If you pitch down a sample or pitch up a drum sample from what it actually was, that's your style from the giddy up. So yeah, I find that often it leads you to where things, you know, eventually end up, just in terms of that vibe you're talking about. And I just think it's not so much a trademark because it was never intentional, but it's so deeply ingrained now that I think a lot of them are actually just habits to a degree. But I think that if I stripped it out of a lot of stuff that I've done, I wouldn't actually like how it sounded. So I do like to have that sort of old recordy, fluffy needle kind of vibe to things. I just think it's nice. So
definitely. And you sort of briefly mentioned that you might sample from vinyl as well, or do you do much sampling out of your collection?
Yeah. I haven't had a session for a while. I've got the kit down there ready to go, and I should do that soon. But I will. I'll go through everything I've got generally, beginning to end. Because say I bought that record 10 years ago and I was looking for samples, I would have been looking for samples that I wanted 10 years ago, like a jazz sample or some pads or a horn or something like that, because I was trying to make jazzy stuff. But now I don't want that, and I already have it. I want something else. I want the weird little drones of synths, like reverb tails off soundtracks and stuff like just weird distorted things, So I go through them maybe every couple of years, and I go, ooh.
It's a great source of that nice sort of analogy, that nice warm.
It absolutely is. And again, not necessarily intentional, but when you do work with a lot of crackly old samples, you're going to have crackly tracks. And, sometimes it might sound like you're inserting cliches, but it's not. It's just the source material. You've got no choice. I'm not going to sit there and try and clean it with those anti-crackle things, because they make it sound different, and that's not, it's not the sound you're after. So leave it. It's like a lot of the old sort of Ronnie Size and Dope Dragon era tunes, where the samples are very badly sampled, crackly, the envelopes are all off and sometimes don't sound particularly good, but that's the vibe of the track. If they did it another way, it wouldn't be the same. So
you wouldn't get that feel.
No, it'd be utterly different. So yeah, and everyone was so obsessed there for a wee while with everything being perfect and so on, that I just sort of thought that you're limiting yourself as to what you can use, your palette, because if you're only using perfect samples, it's either coming off a CD or a sample pack or something is the only, outside of this sort of thing, is the only way you can get perfectly clean sounds and synths. But even the outboard gear's coming in from outboard, so that's got a sound of its own as well. So yeah, you're discounting a whole lot of stuff for this perfect clean sound, and I don't know, I just found it a little sterile to work that way.
So let's talk a little bit about getting signed. It's obviously something that's a lot of people try to achieve. We had a conversation a few days back where we briefly spoke about the kind of the etiquette, and in some ways some people maybe push maybe a bit too hard rather than focusing on the music itself. What was your approach as far as getting signed? Have you been hounding people day and night, calling everyone up, sending demo CDs to the office, home address, and bathroom? Or?
Yeah, that's my MO. No, the approach was no approach to a degree, because it was something that I'd been doing for so long without any contact with anyone else, because I hadn't sent anything to anyone basically for 10 years, because I knew that it wasn't good enough. And you might sort of lose interest after 10 years of nothing happening, but it's just something that I do. So, but I think you get to a certain point where you do realise that, not that there's a market for what you do, but there might be people who would like it other than you, because surely if you like it, there's at least maybe 10 other people that like it, and that might be it, you don't know. And so there'll be something you'll be especially proud of, and you'll send that off to just someone that might have a sympathetic ear. They don't even necessarily need to be a label owner or anything like that, because even friends or someone who's a DJ might hear it and they play it to someone else, and it'll go from there. And if it's good enough, it will end up somewhere. And I had just not a trust in that, but I just thought that's how it should work. As soon as it's good enough, someone will go, "What's that?" and it'll get passed to someone, and that's essentially what happened. Started sending tunes to Jeff at Samurai, who I was working for, because he's a great contact to have. At the end of the day, it was pretty lucky, and I would send him the odd tune. And as I said the other day, I sent him tunes for years with little to no feedback. Not because he wasn't interested in what I was doing or anything like that, but he's a busy guy, as are most label owners. They don't have that time to reply to every person that sends a tune. And it might not have been anything that he could sign or wanted to sign, but he would pass it on to people who might have been interested. And I also had someone else doing that with the more beat-orientated stuff that I released. They would say, I know somebody might be interested in this, I'll send it to them. And then if it's good, you will get an email eventually. And if it's not, you will not get an email. You know, you'd be very lucky for someone to actually sit down and say, hey, look, it's not really a cup of tea. Maybe send us something in a couple of years. I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago that might have been the case. But people are so inundated with music now, just absolutely flooded with music that people are throttling it back. They're not accepting any submissions. And they're perfectly happy with the people, the team that they've created. And it would take someone really pushing music to someone for them to go, oh, right, okay, I'll listen to it. But it's a sort of turning into a closed shop because there is so much output at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely tough. But I think there's something to that approach of rather than worrying so much about your marketing or sending your tune to every single person on the planet, just focus on making the music better and focus on making it something special that when the right person does hear it, that they will actually want to.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, because you send an absolutely amazing track to someone. Just because they don't know who you are, they're not going to say, no, I don't want anything to do with it. If you send it to one person and it's a great track, they'll go, right, we want to be involved, you know. But if you send them something that's just either exactly the same as what they're getting crap loads of or worse, and it won't really be on anyone's radar. So, and it's not a matter of trying to be different just for the sake of being different either, but to stand out, you need to be an original voice, I think, now, because there's a lot of people just sort of making tunes, and it seems like they're making tunes to send to people, you know. Like it's just, this one should go over here, so I'll just send it to this label, this label, this label, this label, this label, and you're sort of diluting it. And one of the things I found is the more people you give it to, the less likely that any to either sign it or play it. If they'll come back to you and say, who else has got this? And if you say, no one, I've only sent it to you, they're like,
yeah,
you know, if it's a
job.
cool track, yeah. And so I think that's also a really important thing as well, to stop putting things up on SoundCloud unless you're giving it away for free, and that's another discussion. If you have got a personal relationship with someone through, you know, keeping them up to date with your music, and they know they're the only person getting it, it makes it far more attractive. Whereas if you say, oh no, I sent it to this guy as well, and him, and oh, he's played it in the mix, that person that you might have been the most interested in dealing with will go, oh, well look, you know, it's already sort of out there. So, and that's how tight it's all getting.
Yeah, I think another thing that people can be prone to doing, well, something that I've had in my experience is I get through the show, I get people sending me tunes as well, and sometimes I'll get people sending me stuff and putting caveats in there. Is that pronunciation right? Caveat?
Yeah, caveat.
Caveat. Sometimes I get people sending me tunes with the caveat in there that, oh, this isn't quite finished yet, or it's not mastered yet, or I think I've still got a little bit of thing. And they're expecting you to get excited about their music when what they're putting forward is there, before you've even listened to it, you know this isn't the best. They're kind of admitting failure before you've even listened to the tune.
Well, it's a disclaimer, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, this might not be as good as some of the other stuff you're sent, but honest, I can do better.
Yeah.
You know, but so why do it?
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of the time, and I can sort of understand the mentality of it because I've probably done it in the past and said, oh, look, you know, I think it might need tweaking or something like that, is you just sort of giving yourself an excuse, I think. When nothing happens with it, you kind of go, oh, well, you know, it wasn't finished and I probably should have done this. And so you're kind of giving people, yourself and the person at the other end, an excuse to go, hey, look, no,
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas
true.
if you back it, you know,
That's it.
and then it comes back, you know, oh sorry or whatever, you're like, oh well, keep on plugging away. But if you're already making excuses for your music,
Yeah.
you've got to sit down for a wee
It's
while.
not, it's not a good sign. And
No, I don't think it is.
you've also got to be careful about, you don't want to sort of, your first contact or your first sort of dealings with people, if you've sent 3 half-finished tracks, then even if the fourth one's amazing, then you know you're also limiting your chances that someone is going to actually sit down and give it the time of day.
Absolutely.
So you really want to wait until you've got something that you really feel is
The
awesome
finished
product,
Yeah.
and say, here, listen to this, it's awesome, first time, rather than saying, here's something that could be awesome, or something like
Could
that.
have
You know?
could have been awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you would do that. And again, I said I probably have. I'm pretty sure I would have. I'll probably only say that to someone I knew. You know, I wouldn't send it out to a label that I'd never had any contact with and say, oh, I don't know about this one. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they'd be like, well, why should I care? And
That's
out it goes. I think it's very, 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 very hard to get music to people's ears at the moment. It's you've got to be. I don't know. I think you've just got to kind of be honest, and as we were talking about before, let the music do the talking to a degree as well. Because if it's good, it's good. Someone will want to be involved with it, and that's it. And if it's not good, it won't. So, and either you're not interested for the right reason, you might just call it a day and go, oh, well, that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But most people will just go, oh well, keep on going. Yeah, till it's good. I mean, like I said, 10 years before I even had a nibble at anything that I'd done, you know, and I cannot blame anyone because I go back and listen to some of it and there's some original ideas, but I mean, it's just not very good at the end of the day.
It takes a long time to really develop your own sound and get the polish right and really learn how to do everything. It's people, you know, some people rush in. I mean, some people are amazing. You do get the odd guy who's going 8 months and he pulls out something amazing and you're just like, Jesus Christ, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, it's, you know, it takes a long time to properly find something that is good and is your own voice.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me that sort of turned the tide was when I realised what I'd been doing and was trying to emulate people, and I was trying to literally target certain labels. Like I was obsessed with getting on Hospital, and I never sent them a single tune, but that was the sound I was trying to emulate. I got to get on Hospital, and so I was just emulating Hospital tunes, not particularly well. But when you actually you become disillusioned with what you're doing, I think if you're just in a loop like that, you're kind of like, and you either just sort of flake out, or you kind of go like I did. I was like, well, I'll just do stuff for myself. I'll do what I've always wanted to do, you know, which was ambient stuff or, you know, slightly experimental things, realizing that maybe no one would be interested. But as soon as you sort of make that switch for just doing things for your own pleasure, that's when it all sort of fell into place. And some people go straight to that. You know, some people never go to that, but most people probably just go, right, well, this is what I like, so I'm going to try and do that, because there's so much more music out there now. But when I started, there was drum and bass, and if you were into house, there was house, you know. And there was no dubstep, there was no anything, you know. There was two step was there, but yeah, there was no people really sort of experimenting with the known genres. There was sort of experimental drum and bass, but most of it was pretty
Dark
full on. Yeah, most of it was.
Fell into
exactly. There was
liquid
no
drum and bass or heavy stuff.
Yeah, so when that's sort of what you want to be involved with, that's where you aim it. You know, so you kind of confuse yourself for a wee while. You're like, well, this isn't either much fun or doing anything. So no one needs another Pesce, because one's enough, you know. He's very, very good at it. Doing a copy of it is a silly idea. Yeah. And that's what I would just sit there. jazz sample here.
Yeah. I mean, no one's going to do Pesce better than Pesce
Exactly.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I don't worry about, talking to people and other producers, and some people can be a bit closed off about their, talking about their techniques or whatever. But I'm like, well, no one's going to do my music better than me. They might make better music than me, but they're not going to make my music better than I will.
Exactly.
Because it's my music,
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's where sometimes you'll get the best compliments is where you'll play someone a track and they'll go, "Hi, that's so tell that's one of your tunes." And when someone says that, you kind of go, "Good, yeah, that's really cool."
Yeah, you sort of find your voice.
Yeah, I would hate to play someone a tune and they sort of go, "Who's this?" Not like who's this, like wow, but like who's this? This could be New Logic, or this could be Scientific, or something like that. But I think when you do actually click into that sound that's your own and uniquely your own, you're sort of off and running.
So your album on Terrain, Fragment, that each track had a photograph that came with it, didn't it? What was the idea and of doing the visual and the audio together?
With every track that I was sending out, I would tag it with an image so that it would come up on the player. It took me ages to figure out how people were doing it. I had no idea. And so I would just use my photographs because, I take quite a few and didn't really think anything of it. And when Mark was putting the album together, he said, "I'm really keen to do a 16-page booklet with the photographs that you send out with the tunes." And I was like, "Oh, right, that's amazing. Cool, I'm very keen to do that." So that's how it came about. So they're essentially holiday snaps.
I see.
Most of them are not from here, I don't think, not taken in New Zealand, so they're from all over the place. And that's kind of what that album was about. It was during and after a fair bit of travelling and some weird times. So, and that's why that album does sound so different, I think. But the visual counterpart was kind of stuck on at the end, like when I'd finished the tune, I would pick a tune that went with it. But I have worked the other way around as well, being inspired by a photograph, not necessarily mine, that'll just capture a vibe so perfectly that you like try and recreate it musically, whether there's an amazing photo I have of just this sort of out the back of a shop or something in Tokyo, and there's like a dumpster, and then in the background there's skyscrapers, and it's at night and it's all grainy, and you're like, if you could make a tune that sounded like that, it would be perfect. And every now and again it works, and you're like, there we go. Yeah. But that came out really well. I was very, very stoked when I got the CD and flicked through it and looked at the photos, and it just worked really well. I thought it was quite cool.
It was really nice.
Yeah.
And so you've done more work on the visual side of things as well. You've actually done some album art for other people, and
Yep. For Samurai, Wheel and Deal, Zoltar for Need for Mirrors, their vinyl project, which was insane. It was awesome. Quite a few labels that I'm forgetting right now.
So
Yeah.
do you see any kind of similarity, or is there any kind of comparison between working on the visual side of things using software and working on the audio side of things using software? Is there some sort of overlap there?
Yeah, they're almost identical. They are almost identical. Yeah, it is quite nuts. And I think I've said before, I try and use Cubase shortcuts when I'm using Photoshop. Like you're in a very similar headspace when you're doing a certain style of thing in Photoshop, where you're building an image from the ground up, to where you start off with like the same as you might do with a tune, with a sort of a sound bed, whether it be an old grain from a photo or some static or something like that, and you're slowly building all these layers, and it's exactly the same.
The same sort of composition with different layers of the visual element.
Yeah, little touches and the overall vibe and stuff like that. Is surprisingly the same. Yeah, it's quite, and that sort of work is really enjoyable because it is the same feeling as sitting there putting a tune together. There's other stuff that's boring, like making CD templates and all that sort of thing. But a lot of the time, it can be quite rewarding.
So you've got quite a minimal setup. You've got sort of basically working all inside of the box. Is that something that is just a matter of utility, something that had to happen, or is that something that you've purposely tried to keep it all a nice sort of tidy setup?
Oh, it's financial.
Yeah.
I would love to have a room down there that was filled with gear, crusty old synths and drum machines and stuff, but it's just not on the cards, you know, so I do the best I can. And the laptop came about because of the travelling. So, yeah, once it was all in there, I think it's easy if you can get it to work, and B, almost impossible to go back.
Yeah.
You know, because if I started buying gear, I'd have to rethink the whole thing, the way that I actually put music together, which might not be a bad thing. It'd probably be quite a cool thing, but yeah, because then I've got to buy a mixer and I've got to get converters and yeah. So it wouldn't be easy to start doing that.
No.
But if I won Lotto, I probably would.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice thing for people to see, though, that you can have a very simple sort of in-the-box setup and produce very nice, very sort of, again, very organic, spacious music that's, you know, good enough to be signed off out of a laptop, because it is easy to get wrapped up in the gear fetish of I can't make a tune until I get one of those things. And my favourite producer has and so I need one of them. So it's kind of nice to see that again, you can make very good music just in the box, because there's a little bit of rubbish that goes around from some people saying, oh, you can't, if you're not running analog, then you can't make music, which might have been true maybe once upon a time, but definitely not true anymore.
No, and it's not the tools either. And I know that's a cliche, but it's not the tools.
Yeah, so true.
It really isn't. If you stole all my stuff and gave me like an old sequencer or something, like, you know, like Paradox uses, you'd find a way around it, and you'd start using it.
Coming in, take the laptop, but I'm not completely heartless. I was looking at a sequencer.
Leave that.
Leave that.
But yeah, you know, and so you would make do, and your music would probably sound completely different, but it's the intent, you know. So I don't think the gear can change your intent. I think I've probably written maybe 2 or 3 of the latest tunes I've done on the couch during the ads, watching a TV show when I've got 5 minutes to do something. You know, there's nothing. I'll just if I've got an idea and I'm sitting down there, I'll go grab the computer and work on it. I not very often that I will go in there and turn everything on and go, right, magic time. Yeah. You know, it's just where and when I can do it. You know, so.
I guess that's the nice part about the flexibility of just having a laptop and
well, that's exactly right. Yeah, because a lot of people maybe just use that setup for ideas and sketching things out, and then they go into the studio and bring in all their gear and finish it off, which is great. You know, that'd be an amazing way to work. But I think, it just gives me the option of just doing it wherever and whenever. Because I took it travelling with me, and so you would just find yourself sitting somewhere working on something, looking at something really neat or different, you know, and that can have an effect as well. Whereas if you're only ever working in your studio, when you can, I'm not sure if that's, it all sounds stupid, but I'm not sure if that's maybe the best way. It's a good way, but I find that being able to just do it wherever and whenever is, it works for me. So
best for you maybe,
Yeah, I think if I was like, right, well, I've only got tonight and I've got to go down to the studio, you know, because like you guys and like a lot of other people, they have a space outside the house. I don't know how I'd cope with that. I think it would be like, oh shit, 3 hours, do it. Working what I've been working on with doing the art for labels, you know exactly how long things take.
Yeah.
I'll do the label for someone for either vinyl or a CD or something like that, and then it will pop up on Facebook like when I've forgotten about it, like 9 months later. It's out now, and I'm like, what the shit?
Yeah.
So that lag, I think, is a real shame. I don't know many labels that are doing it in such a way that they get it and it's out there, you know. And I can't see if you're just running a web label. This probably can't go in because it's a bit of a diss, but just release it when you get it.
Yeah.
It's back from the master, and make an MP3 and put it on your site. I know that there's release schedules and timings, everything and so on, but if you've got nothing stopping you actually releasing the product, I just don't know why you wouldn't do it. Because it's just...
Yeah, it's hard because I mean I know that, you know, the label tries to create momentum for something, so there's got to be this sequence of events. But like you say, sometimes it's 9 months. I mean, I had one where we worked on a remix for this single that had this great music video and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we need this remix for it ready." Like, we need it now, you know. And it was, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 weeks. I think they gave us like two weeks. They're like, we need from scratch, here's the stems, you've got 2 weeks, we need a completed thing. And it was like, shit, okay. So both of us worked basically around the clock, got it finished, got it in time, sounding awesome, sent it off. They loved it. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, great, get back to me when you release it. And then, you know, a month goes by, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. You know, follow them up 6 months later, what's going on? Oh, we're just sorting out a thing with the record label. Like 12 months later.
Yeah, I believe it.
And it's like, you put the fucking clamps down on us to get this done in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and why?
Over a year. Yeah, it's taken over a year to get it out. I mean, I know there's politics, but it is frustrating, especially with what we were doing. I mean, it wasn't groundbreaking, but the sound of it was quite fresh at the time. No one had done something quite like it, you know, which might sound a little bit, you know, a bit wanky thing to say, but I feel it was quite a, you know, not a groundbreaking piece, but anyway, it was quite fresh for the time. And then 12 months later, there's you know, this stuff that was a bit closer to what we'd done, and I think they lost something by that huge gap.
I do have a story about that. We're rolling, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because this tore my heart out. This one. When I was talking earlier about finally clicking that doing your own thing is the way to do it, and you're just making honest music and not really caring if anyone sort of likes it. And so I had a whole lot of tracks that were pretty different, very experimental, ambient, and this was about 2007, I think. And I had sent them to a friend who was a producer who said, "Oh, I know someone who might be interested in this." Label A, which was probably my favourite label at the time, hands down. Was very, very intrigued by it, and I thought, oh, cool, that's, you know, it's really good of him to do. Didn't expect to hear anything, and I was in London and I had AIM going, and this name popped up with the label name attached to it, and I was like, oh. And it was the label owner, and he said, hey, loving the tracks that you've sent through, have you got anything else? And I was like, yeah, I've got loads. I had loads, because we'd been living in Edinburgh in the middle of winter, and all I did was make music. So, and I was sort of sitting there going, why does he want to know? You know, like, yeah. Oh God. It was one of my first contacts with the label. And he said, I'd be really interested in making this the first artist album on this label, because up until then it had only been singles and EPs on vinyl. And I was like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, oh, absolutely. And he had all these amazing ideas for the packaging and stuff like that. And I was over the moon, as you can imagine, when basically your favourite label gets in touch with you and says, whole album, you just freak out,
yeah.
You know, especially then when, as I said, it was the first time anyone had ever said anything about releasing something. And so I sent everything through. He loved it. We had a track listing, a name. He had ideas for the packaging that he was going to do. And I was just beside myself. I was just fizzing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell anyone.
Oh, of course.
And for a while I just couldn't tell anyone because he said, you know, just sort of keep it under your hat, as most labels do. And then it just dragged on for a wee while and no word, and I was like, oh. And I sort of felt the momentum slipping away. And then I would hear from him and go, no, this is still on track and we'll do it here, and you know, and he was talking about release parties and stuff like that, and I was like,
yeah.
but I still kind of had this nagging suspicion that this is taking far too long anyway. And it ended up that they waited so long that something else overtook it. I had, the music that I'd made was, as I said, quite experimental. It was very dark and gloomy. But during this whole period where it was all kind of on hold, the autonomic thing took off. And so there was no need for what I'd done to a degree, because these guys were doing it in a slightly different way and better, I would add, but a different sort of sound. And then it became a redundant idea. It was like, it probably wouldn't sell because it doesn't sound the same as what's become quite a popular thing now. It's similar, but it's not as good to a degree. Whereas if it had come straight out, I think it probably would have been quite popular. And it's aged, the music's aged all right. I've released a lot of it for free online. But for that to be my first contact with a label, I was just, you know, when it became perfectly clear that it was never going to happen, I was just destroyed. I was just like, well, why bother if this is what's going to happen, you know? So I didn't send any music to anyone for a couple of years. Yeah. Maybe.
Felt the burn on that one.
Yeah, well, I just kind of, it wasn't that I was intentionally like, oh, I'm not even going to bother sending this track out. It just went off my radar. It was just like, well, you know, that was pretty heartless. So I'll just work on music and plug away, you know, and I had no intention of ever sending anything to anyone. But then, you know, a tune will end up in someone's mix or something, and someone will ask you about it, and it all starts building back up again, and then you start flicking tunes out and it's all good. But that was terrible.
Yeah.
Just, if you could have peeked it on a graph from the day that he talked to me and to the day where I clicked, it was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's harsh.
So excited.
Yeah. It's harsh. But unfortunately, I don't think that's a unique story, you know. I don't think it's...
No way. But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that LTJ Bookham had albums for people all over the place that never saw the light of day, that would turn up on the odd mix, and that would be the only time you would hear the music.
Really?
Yeah, I think he sat on maybe a whole Fabio album or someone. You can edit that bit out because I can't remember, but literally whole artist albums that never got released. And like, they were quite famous for it, I found out after talking to someone who was involved with the label. And other labels as well. There's just albums sitting there that they own, and for some reason you can't get back. I don't know why. I never signed anything, so it was all still my music. And I think that should have been a heads up when no contract turned up at any stage of the proceedings. Whereas when you do talk to someone now who's serious about signing something, with contracts in your email the next day, you know, and so you're like, oh, right, this seems fairly legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it doesn't, you kind of go.
So there's obviously quite a diminished amount of money left in selling music, for whatever reasons you want to give.
Yeah.
And the popular answer is sell T-shirts. You need to get on the road and start doing more live stuff. Is that something that appeals to you at all, has run through your mind, or are you just happy in the production role?
I'm very happy just with no one seeing me. That's quite good. But in terms of monetizing what you do, that would also be really cool. But I realised that it's a hard slog. You know, I think people sort of glamorise tootling around and playing gigs, but you know, you talk to anyone that's done even a reasonable tour of a couple of countries, and they'll tell you that it's, you know, it can be pretty bad, you know, for your body and your mind. But I would really love to have a live set that I could do of my stuff and maybe take it in different directions live than I do when I'm just sitting down putting it together when I've got all the time in the world. Yeah, it's a hard one because you do feel like you've put this much time into it, and it's not even money, it's time. You know, like I said, I bought a computer in the year 2000, and sometimes it kind of gets on top of you and you sort of think, well, you should at least get some money out of this. Yeah. Surely, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not always there, and other days I don't care. But sometimes you just sit there and just think, if I'm not going to actually be able to do this as a job, and that's a really terrible way of looking at it, but sometimes you just sort of think, if I can't get revenue from this or an income at all, then should I even carry on doing it? But you know, that happens about every 6 months, and then a project comes up and you're all reinvigorated again. You're like, oh, why did I even care? Yeah. You know. And at the moment I'm in full don't care mode. I can't see that changing. Yeah. But I think a few years back, when you have a couple of knocks and you're like,
yeah, well, I mean,
why am I doing this?
It's a practicality thing, like you say. You're investing so much time and love and energy into something, and money, but also all these things, and you know the returns are not huge.
Yeah, and I would do it regardless, and I know that because I've sort of got to the point before where I've like gone, oh, I'm just going to not do anything for a wee while. I'm not that worried about it, but you know, a day later you've fired up Cubase, and it's just what I do. So, yeah, anything that happens outside of that is absolutely fine. You know, if I was a struggling artist, I'd probably be a bit bitter, but
yeah,
you know, your wants and needs change the older you get, and I'm just not that worried about it. As long as if you could get paid with kudos, that would be pretty good.
Yeah,
if it actually went into a bank account of some kind, that would be really cool. But yeah, it's not.
It doesn't buy food though, unfortunately.
No, it doesn't. But yeah, it's fine. I just like being involved in cool projects, and people contact me and saying, I really dig this. It's great.
All right, Ryan, RQ, if people want to hear your music, is there somewhere online? Have you got SoundCloud?
Yeah, I've got a SoundCloud at the moment with some older stuff up there for free, and that is soundcloud.com RQ or /RQ _ I think.
Go here. This is the
go here,
go
because
here.
I don't think you can search 2 letters on there. I kind of foot tripped myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
pretty sure. So yeah, it's there.
All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Marvelous. Thank you.
It's been an interesting conversation.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you everyone who's been watching. I'm not going to say the giveaways. I'm not sure when this will come out. So that is it for this episode of the DSP Project. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Check out RQ's music. It's very interesting, very nice, deep stuff. Especially if you've got the time to switch off, put your distractions away, and just turn the lights down. And it's really it's really nice.
That's the one
for that kind of mode. If you really want to kind of zone and get into the depth of things, it's beautiful music for that. So that's it for this episode, and we'll see you next time.